There we go. Hey, everybody, welcome back. We're going to go ahead and get started. We have a testimonial here from Carrie. Thanks for joining us, Carrie. Go ahead.
Sure. So hi, everyone. My name's Carrie. I worked with Ryan when we did a training session in Orlando back when all the campus hires first started. And we did a week of Salesforce admin bootcamp. It was really helpful. And then I went straight into a project that was not Salesforce related right after that. So for about from October 2019 all the way till now, I have not seen a Salesforce project, but I did want to be certified in admin. So what I ended up doing was I ended up trying to self-study when I had the time to, and I first took my exam in December and did not pass. I got a 50%, and much to that 50%, I still did better than what I had thought I would initially do because I just haven't been in Salesforce. Now I started studying again, and again I did not pass. And I knew the reason why I didn't pass this time was because I was missing the section on security and access. I didn't quite understand that. So I ended up reaching out to Ryan after I didn't pass the second time around, probably in February, asking him if I could work with him one-on-one. And just by chance, Ryan was saying that he had a free session and he was doing this workshop. So I started taking his classes Tuesdays and Thursdays, 2 to 4. And then just this past Sunday, I took my exam and I was able to pass it.
Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah. And the biggest part I realized with what Ryan has been saying, which is so true, is that security, while it makes up 13% of the exam, it is worth so much more than that, because every question in some way, shape, or form, at least about 50-65% of the questions seem to somehow be related to security in some way, shape, or form. So I would say that security was the biggest portion that you really have to understand before you can get anywhere else with the admin exam. On
your feedback, what did you get on those security questions?
I ended up getting 87%.
87 on security, people. That's really good. That's really good. And then, if you get 87 on security, the easy ones you're going to nail, right? All the user interface stuff, user setup, company information page, the company profile, fiscal year, that's all easy peasy. You hear how confident she sounds now?
Yeah, life-changing from when I failed twice. So, if you fail twice, it's okay. I know it's an ego. It really does hurt the ego. But what I will say, and what I did take away from it, is what Ryan was saying with looking at the questions before you look at the answers is very helpful, and identifying keywords for when you see a security question. And then on top of that, every little section that's worth maybe 2%, 3%, or not as much, those matter when it comes to the exam. Like you think that you don't have to study as hard for those, but at least know the material to know what the question is asking for, so that you can look for the answer.
Study guide, right?
Yeah, exactly. So say App Exchange might just have one question, but it's important to know when that question is an App Exchange question so that you can answer it properly.
Or if you see the word Apex in a test question, does anybody know what that means?
Is that short for App Exchange?
What's that?
Go ahead.
Well, no, Apex is coding.
Yeah, so if you ever see Apex or Visual Force in an answer set on Admin or App Builder, it's not the answer, ever.
Oh. Okay. Because it's beyond what the admin questions will cover? Is that the deal?
Admin and App Builder have no coding whatsoever. So if you see Apex or Visual Force in the answer set, it is not an answer ever.
Cool. Can I don't want to, I took this exam. Hi, this is Doug. Hi, I took this exam like 3 years ago. I'm a sales guy, and we had a little internal initiative to get certification. So I don't want to say I kind of half-assed it, but excuse my mouth, I kind of went after it, not with full vigor like I needed it. And I do remember there was one question that asked something about the App Exchange, and it was like 3 different things you could find. Now, obviously, there were different applications. You can find partner ratings. And there was something else, and I don't remember what it was. And to this day, I still have no idea.
It's probably all different now.
It might be, but what else is the App Exchange used for other than all the applications and checking out partners?
Well, now there's other things, right? You can pull down components on record pages in the App Exchange. You can pull down completed applications. You can pull down integrations. There's partner ratings and reviews on there.
Right.
It's truly like the Google Play Store for Salesforce. You know, you need a button you don't have, go see if it already exists. You need a action you don't have, go look for it. You need an email integration, go see what's available. Because the questions that you'll see in regards to the App Exchange, if you look on the study guide, where do we find that?
Oh, it's in light. Is it in the?
On Trailhead, right?
Yeah.
And thanks again, Carrie. I also want to thank everybody in the class for helping Carrie get there, because without your questions and interaction, it wouldn't have been as good, right? So we're helping each other here. I'm just kind of asking the same questions over and over. That's all I'm doing, demoing a few things, but you guys interacting with each other and asking credible questions at the right time, it helps immensely, because Carrie isn't always the person that wants to sit at the front of the room and answer every question. She might not even ask a question. And there's a lot of people out there like that. They don't necessarily engage as much, but because you all engaged, she got the benefit of that. And now she's willing to come back and say, hey, thanks for helping. I really appreciate you coming back, putting the time in, because it's really all you, right? It's putting in that time that matters. Now, it's nice to have help or somebody that can point you in the right direction. But I'm glad that she came back to me, because obviously I failed the first time. She didn't pass it.
It was not you. I just, time was limited as to the much needed work that I still had to do.
Well, sure. The question would be, how many people do you think would have just blamed it on me?
No.
Right?
No,
I mean, it's funny. I do these classes, and it's always the folks that don't have to pay to go to the class. It's always the folks that are like somebody like Doug, where maybe the CEO sent them all to a class they don't want to go to, that kind of situation. And there's always somebody in one of those classes that just kills me. You know, like, oh, wasn't a good teacher, didn't have knowledge, didn't like the way that they engaged. And it's, you know, I take all that very personally. I still do to this day. It's like, and I shouldn't.
No,
but really, it's attitude, isn't it?
You fools.
Well, no, I've had the wrong class sold to people before too. This class I recently had sold from a client of mine. They sold it to an organization where it was just completely over their head. I mean, there was just, these people were basically selling gym memberships, right? And they put them through this 300 level software engineering course. It was a poorly, it was a poorly chosen class for that group. And that can hurt really bad too, because you could be the best math teacher in the world, but some people just don't want to learn math, right? Anyway, it's just interesting. All the different people you get to meet. Everybody's not going to like you. And I always tell folks, if you want to do my job, imagine getting rated every time you meet somebody, 1 to 5. That's my life. It's like I stopped reading the reviews about a year ago because I couldn't take it anymore. All right. So we're on the study guide here, right? And we were talking about App Exchange. So when you see the keyword App Exchange, here's what I always think. Let me get my pen out. I always think people and money. If you don't have the internal resources to develop your application or whatever the requirement is internally, if you don't have the internal people and you don't have the money to pay a developer or consultant to do it, if you don't have either of those things, then go to the app exchange and see if there's something that's already been developed. In the long run, you're going to end up paying more. Does that make sense? In the long run, you're going to end up paying more for an app exchange app if it's a paid app because it's per user per month. But in the short term, if you don't have people or resources or money, it's a good way to get up and operating quickly for a low initial capital expenditure. And hopefully the implementation of those requirements gets enough return on investment to pay for that overall. And you're not really worried about that long-term payment if you're getting good ROI from the app or the requirement. Carrie, did you get anything on Chatter?
I think it was a Chatter. I had a couple questions. I don't remember exactly what the questions were.
Yeah, there was a while there with Chatter where they were putting like 5 or 6 questions on the exam.
Right.
But it was only showing as like, I don't even, what do they show? It used to have its own thing. It was like 2 or 3% overall. But I think what they were doing is they say on the exam itself that there's 5 extra questions.
Yes.
See those?
Yeah, they do have that.
So it could be that you might get questions that are like, wow, that didn't make any sense, or it was something kind of off the wall that maybe even wasn't on the study guide. I think in those cases, a lot of the time you're looking at these test questions.
There were a couple campaign questions, so I would make sure that I know those too.
Campaigns? Yeah.
Like campaign member, campaign questions, what's
right.
related.
Yeah, the high level understanding of what objects work together for marketing initiatives. Exactly. And we can, if you remember that, going back to schema. Does anybody remember these? What are the 2 main objects that we use for campaigns?
Opportunities and contacts?
Well, if we have the campaign object.
I mean, let's say opportunities and, okay, wait a minute.
So campaign. What do we add members to?
Campaign members.
Maybe it'll help.
Leads and campaigns.
Look at this relationship here. Do you see this? Which one's the parent?
Campaigns.
Which one's the child?
Campaign members.
Which one's going to be the related list?
Campaign member.
Campaign member, right? Always the child side is the related list. So where do we add campaign members to a campaign?
Contacts.
We get it here, don't we?
I would think that would be a lead, would it not?
Well, yeah, but there's 2 types of records that we can add as members. Remember that? Those were what? 2 types of campaign members.
I would think leads and contacts.
Leads and contacts because they're people. See?
This was an exam question.
Yep. Because it's kind of a weird, complicated situation, isn't it? But if you think about it, if you go to the detail record on the campaign, it's going to have this campaign members related list, and we're going to add leads and contacts to the related list. You see? Because we're going to add people to the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So then what happens at that point? Hopefully we're generating what?
Opportunities?
Well, leads. Usually what we're trying to generate here is either what we call a lead or what we call a contact. What's a lead?
A lead is a company or person that's unqualified to determine if they can work with the organization.
Right, a person and a company from an unknown source that's unqualified. So what happens if the lead isn't qualified?
And it's closed, lost, or you close it out and you move on.
Closed, lost, we go to the next one. What if it is qualified?
Then you convert it to a contact and have a leads and opportunity in an account.
Count, contact, and opportunity. Do you see that? So we're adding to this campaign members related list, we're adding people to the list that are getting the marketing initiative. Then as we move through our business process, which process are we moving through?
Sales process?
The sales process. What is that physically? Within Salesforce, where do we hold the opportunity? Which field?
Which field?
Yeah, the path is generated by which field on the opportunity. We always house business processes where? In that stage pick list,
Oh, okay.
right? So then as our lead, it gets converted, the lead vanishes, and it becomes an account, a contact, and an op, right? And then if you look at the campaign here, what is it related to?
Opportunity.
Opportunity. So the campaign, as we move through our processes, the campaign is going to tell us how many contacts we created, how many total value of opportunities do we get, and then how many do we actually win. Everybody with me?
Right.
So if I go and look at a campaign from a user's perspective in the app itself, what does that look like? So if I look at a campaign here, and I'll go back to that direct mail campaign that we were discussing. Where do we add members? Isn't that the campaign members related list? And then here we have a lead, I believe, that was entered. It was a contact. It looks like it got converted. So you can see in the details section here that we had one lead. It was converted to a contact. And then we have one opportunity, and that it's still in a stage to where it hasn't been won or lost yet. I think. I could always go look. Everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody have anything else before we get started with some material here? Somebody have a test question they wanted to do? That seemed to be popular last week. We'll do more. Anybody feel like they do not understand security right now? If so, let's demo it before we move on. Does anybody feel like they need some help? Because security is always going to be looming in the background. It's never going to go away. It's always there. So if you need a rep or two here of actually demoing this with somebody like me watching, if not, I'm going to move on. We can always come back to it. We're not under the gun on time here. So, you know, maybe today you're just not feeling it. And I understand that too. So what have we done so far? Well, we did user setup, security, and what you should be able to do here is go through these modules from organizational setup, user setup, security, and access. You should not only be able to define intelligently in as few words as possible each term, but also demo it in the platform. That's how you're going to get to where you're, not only are you effective, but you can pass this exam to where it's like breathing. You really need to go through the study guide. If you can't do any of this stuff, maybe try it tomorrow or maybe after the class on Thursday. Try to go through and see what you can demo. And if there's anything you need help with, let me know. So now I'm going to move down to this next portion. We've already covered a lot of this. When I say standard architecture and relationships, what should come to mind?
Schema builder?
Schema, right? So what do we see on the schema? We can see what pieces of the app.
The objects.
The objects, which are what?
Oh, I was on a roll.
Tables.
The table. What do we call the columns on the table?
Fields,
What do we
Fields,
call the rows?
records,
records.
What's a tab?
That's the object.
visual representation of an object.
Visual representation of an object. We find them in the all tabs bar at the top of the page. On, off, or hidden, right? What's an application?
That's a grouping of tabs.
A group of objects and relationships that meets a business requirement. Yes?
Sounds better.
Schema, all that schema, right? Another thing that we noticed were the little tentacles. What are those?
Relationships between the different objects.
The relationships. The one that we've been discussing is the most common. What's a standard object?
It's out of the box.
What's a custom object?
One that you would create yourself, or at least that would be specific to your org's needs.
Okay. So currently, have we been working with standard or custom?
Standard.
Standard objects, right? So if we go into schema and look, for our application that we are building currently, I'm going to clear all here. What objects are we using in our application? Standard objects.
Accounts.
What's that?
Accounts, right?
Accounts. What's an account?
It's where the company is.
It's a business relationship that we want to track. I also say it's a company file, right? What would you write on the outside of the file if it was a manual file folder? What else do we need?
The name of the company, so Acme or whatever, or
Well, that's what I'm
Genwise.
saying, right? What would you write on the folder? That's what's on the account record. Plus, we'll have KPIs that pop over from the converted lead. But how often do you think that stuff changes on an account?
Not often.
And who should be changing it if it needs to change?
Admin,
The owner,
the owner.
right? Everybody else, if they need to see it, we can give them read only. We're talking security again, right? They don't need to change this record usually. Let the ownership do that. Anyway, so what else do we have in our standard app here?
Contacts.
What's a contact?
Qualified business relationship.
Well, an account would be a qualified business relationship that we want to track.
A contact is a person who is working with the account, or
Working with the account. Is there a relationship here?
Mm-hmm.
It's a one-to-many relationship. Which one's the parent?
the account.
Which one's the child?
Contact.
Which one's going to be the related list?
The contact.
The contact. What else do we have in our app?
Opportunities.
What's an opportunity?
That's usually where the money is.
Opportunity for revenue.
Yes.
Is there a business process on the opportunity object?
Yes.
What is it physically?
It's the stage.
The
pick
stage
list.
pick list, what do we call it or refer to it as?
Sales process.
The sales process. Good. Is there a business process on the account record?
No.
Is there a business process on the contact record?
No.
What else are we using?
Campaign and campaign members.
Are we using those currently? For what's the process that we're working on?
Sales process.
Sales, right?
Yeah.
So what about what I would consider sub objects? They're not they aren't ever called sub objects in Salesforce jargon. But what are some objects that work with our main objects out of the box?
Are they products?
Could be one. So what's a product? It's actually opportunity product on here. If you don't know, you should be able to take a peek here at schema and get a general understanding of what it is. So what's a product? Just by looking, even if you don't know what a product is, what is schema telling us?
It's the child of opportunity.
It's a child object, which is a table. So I have two tables, opportunity and opportunity product. Which one's going to be the related list?
The opportunity product.
Opportunity product. So what we're doing here is we are listing itemized products and services, like line items on an invoice. You see that? instead of just filling out the amount field on the opportunity, we will go down to the related list called products. We will choose our price book, which is the first thing we'll ask you to do. What's a price book, by the way?
It's the table that holds pricing information for the products.
Yeah, think of a price book. It's a table, but think of it like a catalog. Let's say I'm selling industrial equipment. I might have 15, 20 price books with all different lines of products: cable, push buttons, drives, controllers, whatever. It could also be volumetric. Your price book could be silver, gold, and platinum level pricing. If you buy enough volume, you'll get a better price. But what you'll do down here, in our situation, it's a little bit different. Because what does GenWatt do?
Manufacture generators. I'm trying to remember what we said.
GenWatt sells large-scale industrial generators, right? That burn fossil fuels. We're burning dinosaurs somehow. Natural gas, so forth and so on. Propane, diesel fuel. So the way that manufacturers work, they operate like this. They have what they call a distribution side, and they have what they call an OEM side. You know what an OEM is?
Original equipment manufacturer.
Original. How do you know that one?
I just know the term. That's just what the company made.
Yeah. Okay. So that now we're getting into some industry jargon here, but do you think that's going to be important if you're developing applications for clients, is to use their jargon?
Yes, it is.
You see, we could have called this B2B or B2C sales, but that doesn't really, that's not how they say it. Distribution, generally speaking, from a manufacturer standpoint, has a lot of part numbers, or many of our products that we create, and they usually, up until very recently, they always had inventory. Now they have what they call on-time delivery, which is it's one of those things you got to be careful with. But generally speaking, they would keep in stock our products and then sell them to what they call end users. And they would get what they call a discount. They call it a multiplier. So they give you like a 0.30 multiplier off list. So if it's $100 for the part, then you're going to end up, they're going to pay 70 for it. They charge the client 100 or maybe a little less, and they keep the difference. That multiplier is their margin. And they can give that away as they wish. If they only want to take 15% to get the business, so be it. But that way, that's how these distribution firms operate. They're usually territory protected, meaning that they don't really have distributors competing with them in a territory. They keep items in stock, and they have this multiplier. Original equipment manufacturers, however, usually have like one part or one piece. It's usually proprietary, because what they're doing is they're using our generator in whatever it is that they're making. So they might buy that one part, but they might buy, 100,000 of them a year. So what we do here as a manufacturer, and the distribution side knows this, that they can't compete because these folks go directly to the manufacturer. So they'll get like a 0.65 multiplier off list. So they'll get a very, very low price for the volume, and they deal direct with us as the manufacturer. Pretty much everybody else, we want to go through distribution. So which one pays more, Hugh?
Distribution, right?
Distribution is going to pay more. Who pays less? Well, OEM. Which one has more products in the price book?
Distributor.
How many price books do I have here?
Multiple.
At least two, right? Generally speaking, we don't want people that deal with distributors also dealing with OEMs. So we could have two completely different roles here, distribution sales and OEM sales, and I can isolate those price books using OWDs. If you go look at price book, you can set them to no use, and then you can share the price book itself, much like you would a manual share. So let's
And
go
how
ahead
about
and
selling direct, Ryan?
that's here. If you're selling direct, OEM that means we're selling direct.
Right, but the OEM in this case is this the end customer, or this is another company that's taking some of our parts and putting it together to sell it as
They're going to
another
sell
product?
a manufactured end product that they sell to their distribution and end user network.
Right. I'm talking about us selling generators directly to consumers.
Let's just say we do not do that.
Gotcha.
So in a lot of cases, that is the case for a manufactured product like this. They're probably not going direct to the end user because they don't want to sell onesie twosie. That has changed over the years. Granted, with the internet and online specification and on-time delivery, these things have changed over time. But your big boys still play this game, especially like Tier 1 Automotive. They would use a very similar model to this. Does anybody want to see how I would do this?
Sure.
So right now, we're looking at price books, right? So I'm going to go to the app launcher here. I'm going to go to view all, and I'm going to go to price books. Looks like maybe I have it set to.
Ryan, have you worked with
Right.
CPQ at all?
Have I worked with it? No,
Yeah, okay.
I probably should. But so right now I've got one price book called standard. Instead of creating a new price book, I'm just going to change the name of that standard price book to distribution. This is because I know that price book already has a bunch of products in it. If you were to look at this standard price book, there are already entries in here. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to say that this is our distribution price book. So I'm just going to change the name to all right. So now if I go back to price books again, just so you can see it after the change here. There's my distribution price book. And then I'm going to create a new price book called OEM price book. Make sure it's active. All right. So how many products did we say the OEM price book should have?
There's just one, right?
There's just one. But if I add the product that already exists, the pricing is going to be off, right? If it's using the previous price book.
Right.
So let's say I want to add the diesel GC1060 here, the big boy. Do you see how I could change the list price? That's a really easy way to play this game. So now how many price books do I have?
Okay, two.
Two, right? Which one costs more for the GC1060?
Cost the customer more, or
Yes.
yeah.
Which price book has the higher value, right? So if I go to this opportunity here, and I go and I hit next to product, I
You want
choose
to use
my
the
price book,
distribution one, right? Distribution has a
I get a
lower
choice.
markup, right?
See how I get a choice? So if I go to the distribution price book, how much does that cost? 100K. If you go to the details section and look, this is locked now. You can't change the amount. We're itemizing products and services here. The other side of the coin would be if I choose the OEM price book, should it cost more or less?
I think it was less.
should cost less, correct? So now that I've added the price book, now I can add a product. How many should I have in this price book? How many products? Just one. Is it more or less expensive than distribution?
Less, 39
Less.
versus 100. Right.
See? Now, you see the problem here? What do you think the problem is? We got to refresh that browser. When you make changes, you have to train people to refresh the browser. If not, they're not going to see the changes in real time. They're looking at a previous version of that record page. You just have to get people in the habit of, when they see an issue like this, immediately refresh the browser. There we go. Another thing I mentioned is if you had a salesperson that did not need to see one of those price books. So how do we restrict access in Salesforce? Only one way.
At the profile.
No, you're restricting permissions at the profile.
OWD.
That's it. See, security never goes away. It's only one way to restrict access. What is it? OWDs, always. Nothing else can restrict access. Everything else is giving additional access above and beyond OWDs. Think of the left side of the matrix. So if I go to our security here and we go back to our sharing settings, not our sharing set, yeah, sharing settings, and then I'm going to make sure that my OWDs for price books are set to no use. What do you think that does?
You're setting it to
access.
what?
Sorry. If I set my price book to no access on OWDs, what does that mean?
It means the user won't be able to see it unless they own it.
In this case, you won't see it unless you're an admin.
Hmm.
So I have restricted price books down to where nobody sees any. How do we give access if access is restricted? If OWDs are set to no access, then what are the other ways I can give access? Well, role hierarchy won't fly because you're not going to share access to a price book through the role hierarchy. What's the other way?
Sharing rules.
A sharing rule. What's the only way I can share one record?
Manual share?
A manual share.
So you gotta go classic.
Well, what's the rule on that?
You have to go to classic.
You have to go to classic. So what I'll do is I'm going to switch to classic. And then I'm going to go to setup. Or I'm sorry, I can probably go to price books up here. This is what they call the all tabs button in classic. That takes you to the all tabs area. You should find price books there. But what we can do is we can share our price books with a manual share. So I restricted it all the way down, and then I can give it to the sharing model as needed. So if I only give Joe the OEM price book, and then I log in as Joe. Switch back to Lightning here. So I'm going to hit setup here, log in as my user. What is the desired outcome here? Does anybody know?
What, for Joe to be able to use the price book?
Which one? Did he see both? Emmanuel shared just the OEM price book. And I set the access level in OWDs to what? No access.
So OEM only.
So Joe, hopefully, if this all played out right, is only going to see the price book that he needs. Where is it? Weird. Why is there no? Oh, this is a really good case study. What's the problem? I'm logged in as Joe. What don't I see?
Opportunity?
Well, the price book, right? The products related list.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we going to do first? We have a visibility issue. This is like a perfect example of what you'll see as an admin. What is the problem?
We have to configure the Joe's profile. I
Well,
think that
we can, so you can start guessing, which is what you did, and you may be right. You may be correct. But I'm going to say there's a better way. Is this an access issue? Who owns the record?
Joe.
Really?
You
No, Ryan owns the record. We have shared the record with Joe.
So what level of access does Joe have?
Full access?
Read write.
We don't know, do we? So how do we find out what Joe has? What are OWDs? So we're just going through our matrix again, right? What do we check first? Ownership. He doesn't own the record, so what controls access at that point if he doesn't own it?
Org wide defaults
OWDs are set to private. What does that mean?
means that you can't see anything.
Well, he's not getting any access that way.
Right. Unless there's
So what's another way to get access if OWDs
sharing.
are set to private? Could be a sharing rule, but that's not the next step.
Oh, the role hierarchy.
Let's look
Role
at
hierarchy.
role hierarchy and see if he's getting some level of access there. You with me?
Yep.
So where would you check this? Well, I'd probably go and look here. He doesn't have a role in the hierarchy. So if he doesn't have a role, what does that mean? He doesn't own it. OWDs are set to private. He's got no access there. He's not a role in the hierarchy. So what's he got at the role level?
Nothing.
No, okay, what's another way to get access?
Now sharing rules.
Sharing rules. So now we got to figure out which sharing rule is giving him access. So what would you check first? I mean, if it's me, I'll let you guys guess. Where are you going to go?
To different teams.
Yeah, I was thinking of maybe like the account teams.
Okay, perfectly valid. Isn't that a form of sharing?
Yep.
So let's take a look at the account team related list or the opportunity team related list. Is Joe on the team?
No. Yes.
What level
No,
of
that's
access?
it. That was the opportunity.
Oh,
team.
that's the opportunity team. So you said with the team.
Well, yeah, it's
Account-
still a team, right? So what's the highest level of access he can get?
Read write.
What's he got here?
Read only.
Read only.
Read only. So now we have at the very least what over here?
Access.
Well, as far as access, what's he got so far?
Got read-only access.
Got read-only right now from a sharing rule. How else might he get access?
Manual share.
Did we manually share an opportunity? How would you check?
Log in as Joe and see if he sees it.
Well, that would be another way of checking things out, right? What level of access does he have? So we could log in as Joe again and say, all right, what do we got? All of these are good tools in your tool chest. Because until we figure out really what access level he has, does it matter what his permissions are?
No.
Right? Eventually, this is just going to happen in your mind. You're just going to kind of be able to do it. So if I log in as the user and look at that record, American Banking was the record. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Can he edit the record?
No.
Can he edit the record?
No.
He just did.
You did? Did you save it?
Yep. So he obviously has what?
Read write.
He's got to have read write somehow. I'm thinking it's probably
Manual share.
could be a manual share on the record. How would you check that?
Switch back to classic and
Yep. Check it and check there and see. There's one thing we haven't really looked at yet either. Object level sharing rule. There could be an account team with read write. That's another way to get read write. So if I switch to classic, go to my op, American Banking, sharing. Oh, look. What level of access does he have?
Read write.
read write.
What's the highest level of access you can give with a sharing rule?
Read write.
Read
So
write.
then what's he got?
Full access. Is
No.
that?
Read write.
He's got read write.
Yeah.
He had
Much access as he can have.
no.
Well, as if he's not the record owner.
That's partially correct. He's got the highest level of access you can give with a sharing rule.
Right. Okay.
So if OWDs are set to private, what level of access does he have?
None.
What if there's no role in the role hierarchy?
None.
What did the manual share give him?
Gave him read write.
Read write. And then what did the opportunity team give him?
Read only.
Read only. But does that matter? Isn't this all additive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we done got the access, right? So now what do we do?
Look at the permissions.
Does anybody remember the requirement?
For him to be able to use the price book.
Well, they weren't seeing what?
They weren't
Object.
seeing
They weren't
price book.
seeing the related list on the record, right? The products related list wasn't there.
No, it was not.
So now I would go to the user's profile. Because I know that if I look at it as myself, you see how it's there? If I'm the admin and I can see it, and the user cannot, and they have at least read write, then I'm going to go look at the profile next. You with me?
Yes.
So I'm going to go find Joe's profile, which should be custom sales. Usually when I'm doing this kind of stuff, I like to be extra careful. So I'll just go to the user detail record and click on the user's profile from the user detail record. I know it's custom sales, but just in case, go ahead and look. And then I'm going to go in and say, all right, look, he's got the custom sales like we thought. So then what can I change if I do hit edit? Is this an app issue? No.
It's an object issue.
Could it be a tab issue? Notice how I'm not skipping. Go right to the next thing. Look for price books and products. I'm going to make them default off. What's that mean?
That they are there, but they are not visible on the tab.
Yeah, they're going to be in the launcher, but not on the bar.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to keep going down here and look. Now, if I want to be super careful, I might Control F and look for price books or partner or products in here. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to keep going. So then I'm going to come down here to the standard object permissions. Do we see any object permissions that we need?
Yes, price book.
Read.
Ryan, one question here.
Yep.
We don't need tab visibility here because it's going to be displayed as a related list. So I think the main issue would be at the object level sharing.
So you're saying if I do this, it'll work?
Yeah, and if you revert the tab settings, it will work. I think it will work.
It will not.
Okay.
But we'll prove it. That's a good case study. So now I have the object permissions, but no tabs. So the object exists and you have permissions for the object, but if the tab doesn't exist, how are you going to get there? My point would be, if I want to create a new product, how would I do that if I don't have the tab?
Right.
And also, if you don't have the tabs, you won't see the object at all.
Right.
So we definitely need that the tab. That's why I just start at the top and I just go right on down the line. That way I don't miss things. Because if you start trying to guess and jumping around, you're gonna think you got the right answer, and you're gonna get 3/4 of the way through, and you're gonna be like, "Oh man, that's not the answer." Whereas if you just run through this kind of troubleshooting guide, you'll always find it. You just go step by step. It's like troubleshooting a machine. It's like first do this, then do this, and eventually you will come to the problem. A lot of times what I find people do is they come down here and they'll turn these on and they'll forget to come down here. They'll forget to come down here and check these. So it still won't work. They'll get an insufficient privileges error here. That should do it. How would you test to see if that worked?
Refresh the page.
Well, I'd probably log in as Joe again and go look, right?
Right.
So log in as Joe. Take a look at my op record. What level of access does he have?
Read right.
Read write. What permissions does he have? Create, read, and edit. So if I choose a price book, which one should he see? He sees both. He shouldn't. The whole idea is that you can restrict access to price books. I could probably go into the distribution price book. He's probably already added there or something.
I would say that's some great learning.
What's that?
That's a great case study. I would say that's a great way to learn things.
Oh yeah, that's a great case study right there. That's like exactly what you'll see in real life, for sure.
Yes, exactly.
Now the problem here, I think, is that I am in Lightning and there's no share button. So if I switch to Classic, I think he may have been added to the distribution price book already. No? And I know I restricted it down. I'm logged in as me. Joe's not on here. Why? It's a head scratcher. Let's see, the OEM price book. Joe's got view through a manual share. So if I log in as Joe, maybe I was looking at a previous version of that record. Okay, now I'm Joe. I don't own the op. WDs are set to private. I don't own it. I've got read-write access. So if I delete this, maybe because the product already existed, it gave me both. I'm not going to do the 100-hour troubleshoot on this, but not quite sure why that's happening. He should only see the one because I only shared the one. OWDs were set to private. I'll look into that one offline and figure it out before next class. But the idea is that you can isolate them to only have the price books that they need, so they don't choose the wrong price book. In this case, Joe would be working only with OEMs. So the desired outcome there is that you don't have the option to choose anything but the OEM. I'm not quite sure why that isn't working, but I will figure it out. Does everybody get the general idea on a price book and a product?
Yes.
Like a high level understanding of it. If you think about OEM and distribution, how distribution pays more, OEMs pay less. You got two price books. One has lots of products with a higher price. One has one product with a lower price. And then restricting access all the way down by setting your OWDs to no access, and then sharing with a manual share just to those users that need it. That's all kind of key points of products and price books. So that, I think there was a lot of good there. Let's go back to schema and talk about what else we are using in our application currently to sell our dinosaur burning generators. So going back to schema, what other objects are we using for the sales process? We might add other processes later. So if I go into the object manager and then we look at schema, I've got accounts. That's our company file. Contact is a person at a company. Opportunity houses our business process. And then we have price books and opportunity products, which are going to be in the form of a related list on the app where we itemize our products and services. What else are we using out of the box currently, do you think, for our sales process?
Use tasks,
Yep, task is going to be one. What do we use those for?
tracking our activity.
Activities. What's an activity in Salesforce? I don't know if we've covered this one. So maybe briefly. So if you look at these, you'll notice that they are all related to the task object. All the main standard objects are related to the task object. It's going to show up as a related list. If you look at a record, so if I go to, say, an account record in the sales application, related here, we have all of our related objects. Well, currently we're using contacts, opportunities, and then down here, they've got some case stuff here. But over here in activities, these are what we call tasks and events here. A task is just a to-do. It is a date and time. You see how it has a due date and a subject here? So I could say, call boss or something. And then I can have a due date of when it must be due by. So it's like a deadline. And then I can add a contact. Here, I'm going to put call Jack Rogers. It'll make more sense. And then I can add the contact, which is going to be Jack Rogers from Burlington. It's going to show up on his contact record as an activity. It's also going to show up on the Burlington Textiles account in activities. I've assigned it to myself. I could assign it to others. Even groups of users if you wish. But I'm going to assign it to myself. And then the status is a process here. Do you see this? So an open task is in something other than completed. A completed task is completed. But these activities show up in this related list, and you can see what happened when and with whom. And then as we move through, we can change the status to completed after we've done it. Now it's going to show up in activity history, something that already happened. This would be upcoming. This is going to be something that's completed. A logged call is just a task that is automatically in completed status. Save. So there's the logged call, something that happened in history. Do you see that? If I wanted to create a follow-up, I would create a new task for that. That's going to have some due date and time, some deadline. There's my contact that I can add here. And then our status could be in progress here. Save. That's going to show up in things that need to happen in the future. A calendar event is just like in Outlook. There we go. We're going to have a meeting. When? April 21st at 1. We're going to end it at 2, and we're going to add Jack. Location, on-site or something, and then save. So this is actually going to show up on your calendar. So you have a calendar invite. It's going to show up on your calendar. Your calendar is going to be located on the home tab here. And then here's your today's events. You can peek at your calendar and see that in several different views. There's the meeting. And then we all know what an email is, right?
Right. I saw something come across my feed today on LinkedIn about Salesforce, I guess, discontinuing the Outlook integration with Salesforce this
Because
year.
it was absolutely horrid. I've tried 4 or 5 times to set that up, and it never worked.
You talking about Lightning for Outlook?
I'm talking about all of that. The only thing that ever worked worth a crap, as far as I can tell, is the Einstein activity capture. But that you can't report on any of that stuff. It operates like a feed. You just kind of log in with your Gmail account or your Outlook account, and it puts the activities that have happened in the form of a feed. It doesn't get logged where you can report on it.
Mm.
But for a small company, it's really cool because it's really easy to set up. It doesn't require a lot of configuration time. It's not confusing. The users can do it themselves on a limited basis. What I always use is an application called Cirrus Insight.
Yeah.
It's by far the best because it not only puts Salesforce in your inbox, but it also syncs the calendar. It's got, what do they call that, where it tells you whether or not the email tracking. Let me show a short video here.
Ryan, what was the name of that again that you use?
Cirrus
CIRRUS.
Insight. And then we'll look on YouTube and see if I can get a short demo here for everybody. I sell this. I'm not trying to sell it to you, but I do sell this. Here's the Gmail. Let's do the Outlook integration. Most people in here use Outlook, right? All the old farts in the room, raise your hand.
Easy.
I'm one of them. All right.
Find in Salesforce. But leave in your inbox to log
Sorry.
that information is a
You guys hear that?
process.
Yeah.
Work for sales reps, and no one wants to waste time on busy work. That leads to an underutilized or even empty CRM. Cirrus Insight brings Salesforce data into the inbox, so you don't have to leave Outlook to view a customer Salesforce.
How cool is that?
Create new lead and contacts, save emails to Salesforce, sync calendar events, or update opportunities and cases. You can even effortlessly book meetings and much, much more with Cirrus Insight. Access and edit Salesforce information where you work and spend less time on manual data entry with Cirrus Insight for Outlook.
That's fast.
How cool is that?
All the demos look cool.
Oh, it's that cool. That's one of those apps that I definitely for sure recommend to just about everybody.
How is that different than like with the Salesforce Essentials API integration?
I've only done one Essentials project in quite some time. Did I just kill Salesforce? I think I did. That's okay. I've only done one implementation of Essentials, and we did, what did we do? We did the Einstein activity capture. It was a big hit. I think at one point we had Lightning Connect and email for Lightning. And it was a very, very simple org, so it was all kind of working. But as I was developing, I was like, man, if you've got any sort of complexity, it could be problematic. I always just recommend Cirrus Insight because the Outlook is so bad that the standard native Outlook integration is so bad that I think it's like $20 a month per user, which for most orgs to put Salesforce in a user's inbox, that's huge. You want to talk about getting user adoption, right? I mean, that's where I want my users to be. But once again, if you don't set things up intelligently, if you truly don't think simple, most restrictive, using the standard objects as intended, if you don't have all of these, the beginning foundations of what it takes to build a good app, then none of these integrations work because they are expecting you to use all the standard objects as intended. Does that make sense?
Yes.
If you got a custom object called company, is Cirrus Insight going to know that you didn't use the account object? So be careful of that. That's a really big red flag. When I go into an org and I see everything's a custom object, it's like, uh-oh. That's a shoestring that needs to be untangled, right? Let's see. We were talking about schema, right? This should be somewhat of a review. It's been a couple of weeks since we talked about it. There's also one called events. That's just another activity. Those are our calendar events. Everybody kind of see what we're doing here? Does this remind anyone of anything?
A schema builder.
Yeah, but who was there last class when I handed out the project?
I was not.
So if I'm building an app from scratch, the first thing I want to do is nail down the already existing and working infrastructure. So for our fossil fuel process, where is the business process housed currently?
Opportunity.
It's going to where on the opportunity object?
Stages?
It's the stage pick list, right? On the opportunity object. So if I go to the object manager here, this is a nice upgrade from classic. There used to be 2 different places to find objects, one for standard and one for custom, and it confused the heck out of everybody. So now they have this tab. When you hit setup, you can go right to the object manager and every single manager is here, or every single object is here. So if I go to the opportunity object, I will see a list of fields here. If I go to fields and relationships, there's my list of fields. Does anybody know what data type is?
Yes, it's the type of data or the way in which Salesforce is expecting you to input the form of information. Like, for example, if it's a currency data type, then it's going to be looking for something like dollars and cents. If it's text, then it's just going to be looking for all words.
Good. Very good. That was a nice explanation. The way I always remember it is they'll use these words on the exam is standard data validation. So out of the box, there are fields that have data types that are protecting our data from users entering the wrong type of data through what they're calling standard data validation here. We aren't setting up the rules or anything. They already exist in the form of this data type. Questions there? What can I change on a standard field?
Description.
Well, let's look. If I go to account name and I select edit, description, I could change help text. This stuff is all new. I don't think they're testing on this yet. This data owner through compliance categorization. This is all this last release they added this. I don't even know what this crap is. So I would say, what can you change on a standard field? Traditionally, the answer was the description and
The help text?
the help text. So that would be a 2 out of 4 answer. Another thing you can change on a standard field or a standard object is going to be the tab name and the field label. This is done through the setup tree. If you search for tabs, names, and labels, so just type in tab up here in the search bar. It'll let me. Rename tabs and labels. That's what it's called. So if I come in here and I come down to opportunities and I select edit, please note that you can change the name of the opportunity object to something else. Do you think that is a good idea?
No,
Why not?
because probably other things are going to be looking to it.
Well, if you change the label, it's not necessarily changing the API name on the back end. You're
Help me
just
out. Go further with that.
Yeah, what I'm getting at here is you should never do it. You can. Like I had a client that changed the name to that because they were in construction. What do you think happens if you go and search job and help and training up here? Do you think
Not going to find it.
Yeah, does it bring up opportunities?
No.
Are users with a Salesforce background going to know what's up here?
No.
So you're much better off to teach people properly, drill sergeant, right?
I would think most people would think that that would be like more from employment. When somebody says job, they think in employment, like HR.
Well,
opportunities.
This was a contracting firm, so a job was like truly their opportunity for revenue. Right? The job they were working on, the roofing they were doing or whatever it was, they called them jobs. But it just caused all kinds of problems. Don't do this. Don't change the name of standard objects. Teach people properly. Now, that said, I don't have a problem about going in and changing the name of a field if necessary. You see how you could come in here and change a field name? Or if I wanted to do it on account, let's change that rating field on the account object to prospect rating. So I'll come in here. Instead of rating, I'll call it prospect rating. That doesn't change anything on the back end. It just changes the label that the user sees. Sometimes that's totally viable and useful. Just be careful about changing the names of standard objects. It's more trouble than it's worth.
Same thing applies if you're going to copy an object, just to change the name, right?
Oh, what are you doing? You're copying an object for what?
Well, I'm saying if the customer is adamant about saying, Ryan, we don't understand opportunities, that's not in our vocabulary.
Yep.
What do you do then?
I'm going to say, well, it needs to become your vocabulary. So you need to speak the language. What you'll find is that when people plunge, here, which is usually after this for some period of time, right? So what'll happen here is as they're plunging, they're going to keep saying, well, that's not what we used to call it. Do I care what you used to call it back here?
No.
I mean, if I did this right, during BRG, I sat down, business requirements gathering, I sat down with all these clowns, right, and said, hey, what's wrong with your job? Well, I hate it. Right? So then we get down here, and what are they saying here? Well, I hate Salesforce. So what's changed? See what I mean? Nothing has changed. The way you get it to change is by getting people to accept the new terminology. And as soon as you start hearing them say the word system, in the system. Oh, is it in the system? Look it up in the system. That's how you know that you're back to that productivity line. Until then, you're going to be like, but we didn't used to call it opportunities. They used to be called jobs. Well, hey, you know what we don't care about anymore? Any of this. We had a line in the sand right here. We said nothing exists. This is the Big Bang right here. Nothing exists before the Big Bang. Forget all of that because it's not helpful. You already said you hated it. You felt you didn't trust it. You didn't like it. You didn't use any of the functionality. It was just extra work. It was just putting in call reports. Oh, it's just I have Sauron watching over. I mean, all of that, everything they all say. And then they get in here. What do they want to do? They immediately want to revert back to their terrible behavior. It's like, no. So what does that require from a stakeholder?
Discipline, I guess, and governance.
Absolutely. This is where I usually tell my Icarus story. There's always the salesperson or someone in an organization that was the best man at the CEO's wedding or something. And they've known each other forever. They've been in business together for 30 years. They're the top salesperson at the firm. Man, they're great. They got a 90% close rate. Do I believe that?
No.
No. Do you think when I'm making changes and asking for people to get in touch with me and help me build this thing as a group, do you think that person contacts me?
No.
No.
Of
Do you
course
think
not.
that person wants to use it in the first place?
No.
No.
Do you think anybody else in that organization likes that person?
Except for the CEO, probably not.
Sure.
No, probably not.
Sure. He's bringing in money.
I mean, it's
Huh?
okay. So this person, I'm stereotyping here, obviously. Nobody is a stereotype, but stereotypes are usually true enough to be funny, right? So, you've got this person that refuses to adopt. And what does that person invariably do? I mean, for those of us that have worked projects before, invariably that person tries to sabotage the implementation.
Mm.
They're toxic. They're negative. They don't need this crap. They've been doing it that way forever. I don't know why we're doing this. The boss is an idiot for doing it. You should do it my way. Tell him it doesn't work. Like that person. How much do we say that the boss is paying per user per month?
Up to $300.
Up to $300 a user per month. So at some point, you have to, first thing I do is I always get in touch with that person and I really try. Like, I'm not saying that I try to execute someone in front of the group every time, right? But I will try, and if there's just no way, especially if I'm getting the scuttlebutt from the people that don't like him, oh man, all he does is talk crap and he hates it and he's never going to do it. At some point, you have to let Icarus fly too close to the sun. And when his or her wings melt, you have to make sure the entire team is watching them fall, and you got to make sure they all see him hit the ground. Because do you think if you fire that person and let that person go that everybody else immediately starts adopting?
Probably so. I mean, if he's out of the picture.
Absolutely. Because, hey, he was the best man at the boss's wedding, and they canned him for not adopting Salesforce. You're going to have a line out the door for your office hours. Show me how this works again. Right? I'm not saying in every situation. But
So when the CEO has your back as well, if he's like on the side of the best salesman in the company, then you're stacked up against you.
I had a client not too long ago, very nice company, very good people, but they were not willing to do what was necessary to succeed, i.e. the CEO refused to log in. This was a potential, I don't know, probably $30,000 project this year I could have had. You know what I told him?
Thanks, but no thanks.
I'm not in the failure business. And I walk away. And they say, can you recommend somebody else? And I say, no, because none of my connections are in the failure business either. They got really mad at me. They got less mad when I didn't charge them for the hours I already worked. I just kept the retainer. But I don't play that anymore. I'm too good at what I do to have somebody that hired me to tell them what to do to not listen. That's just stupid. I don't care how much money they're going to pay me. It's not worth it. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. There's that prospect rating field again. See? What can we change on a standard field?
The help test, description, tab name, field label.
Field label. That's it, really. That's for certain data types. However, there's a couple of data types where you can do a little more. Anybody know of one off the top of your head? Where do we house our business process?
Opportunity stage.
So I'll go to the object manager. Is that a standard field?
Yes.
Okay. So if I go to the opportunity object in the object manager,
change the stage names. So true.
I can add values to the pick list. I can add or remove values to pick list fields. So if I go to my stage field here and click on it, what's the data type? It's pick list data type. What does that mean? Well, it's a drop down with values stacked one on top of the other. See them here?
Mm-hmm.
So this one currently is, if I saw this in reality, I would know that I was in a situation where somebody didn't know what they were doing. Does anybody know why?
Is there overlap? Let's see.
No, this is just an out-of-the-box business process. Should we be using out-of-the-box business processes?
No.
It needs to mesh with our products or services. So if I go in and I see a client using these standard pick list values, then I know that whoever set it up did not understand what the business process is.
Right.
A huge problem. But let's pretend like they developed this from scratch. So we could add more or replace pick list values here. And this, how many processes are we seeing here, by the way?
There's about 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Well, there's just one.
10. Oh, I'm sorry. You said how many processes?
Yeah, how many business processes are we looking at right here?
Right, one sales process.
That's just one sales process. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
So in our case, what we want to do is we want to sell a completely different type of product and service. What do we sell now?
Generators? I forget what we're selling.
Fossil fuel is our current business process. See that? Which is like one through closed, lost, closed, won. It's like prospecting, needs analysis, proposal, blah, 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 right? That's our stage pick list currently. Everybody with me, or am I not making sense? I have a business process for my currently existing products and services that has to do with selling fossil fuels, right? For our project, we want to sell renewable energy products and services. Why would we want to do this from a business perspective?
It's market diversification.
Market diversification, that would be a really good one, right? Why else? Couldn't we call ourselves a quote unquote green company?
Green. Yeah.
Marketing initiative. EP has done this pretty successfully, marketing themselves as a clean fuel provider, because they're probably not making near as much money as they're making off gasoline, but they do dump a ton of money into renewable energy and solutions, and they can use that to their advantage, not only as far as market share, but also through marketing initiatives. So it does make sense for them to do this. I would argue that it's probably forward-looking. As time moves on, renewable energy is going to continue to get lower in cost and provide more energy for the initial capital expenditure over time. Plus, notwithstanding the current market, usually the cost of fossil fuels over time increases, almost like an inflationary value. The cost of fossil fuels over time tends to go up to where it's asymptotic on the Y. So as time goes on, renewable energy is going to become more viable. So it is forward looking. They're looking to get more of that market share. And just having more products and services means more revenue. So all of those are good ideas for us. What's our problem going to be here, do you think?
Maybe market penetration.
That's always a problem. I mean, our problem now is how many. So if I go to a profile, if I go to custom sales, how many page layouts can I have per object per profile? What is a page layout? Well, let's go there first. So if I go to an account here, see this? And I look at view assignment. How many account page layouts are there? Do you see that?
Well,
Better yet, let's go to the object manager under the account here, and let's look at the page layouts that they have available. How many do I have?
4.
How many do I need?
1 maybe?
1, right? That's all I need right now. We're only doing one process. Somebody came in here and created a bunch of these. So what I would have everybody do is come in here and let's delete the ones that we're not going to use and replace them with the account layout. When you get this little error here, you have to hit delete. But I'm going to make it the account layout. I'm just replacing anything that had support with just the account layout. And I'm going to do that for all 3 of the ones we don't need. Anytime I find a situation where I have more than one of something and I don't need more than one, I immediately handle it. It's just trimming the fat. It's being more restrictive and simpler. Sometimes this can be a little glitchy. You might have to refresh your browser. Okay, I've got 1 left. I'll delete it. Replace it with the account layout. Now I have 1 layout here. So once I'm down to 1 layout, I'm going to go over here and hit edit. And this brings me to the page layout editor. So my original question was, how many page layouts can a user have per profile per object? The answer to that question is 1. You can only have 1 page layout per object per profile. Everybody with me there?
Say that again.
You can only have 1 page layout per object per profile. For instance, if I go back and look at the custom sales profile. If you come down here to page layouts and you look, how many page layouts, if you look at account, how many page layouts can I have assigned that profile? Just 1. You see it?
Yeah.
Just the 1 layout. Okay. So what is a page layout? This is all going to come together. Hold that thought, right? Just bear with me. So if I go back into the object manager, I look at that account page layout and find it there. Another place you can find the page layout, that was one way through the object manager. When I'm developing an application from scratch, however, I tend to do it from schema. So I'm kind of looking at my entire application as far as architecture. If I want to look at a page layout, I just use the little cog here and look at the page layout. Generally, that's where I operate from at all times, is schema.
Cool.
And before you had 4 different page layouts originally. You deleted 3 of them, right?
Yeah, that's correct, because I only need 1 currently.
So you can have more than 1, but only 1 can essentially be active or tied to.
You can only have 1 assigned, 1 page layout assigned per profile per object.
Right.
And that's going to end up being our problem.
So is this where we get into record types next?
That's absolutely.
Yay.
There, you see? See where I'm going here?
Yeah.
So for this first page layout, we'll probably do that Thursday. So this first page layout I'm looking at here, where people get screwed up is they forget that box 1 up here influences box 2. So right now, box 1 is set to fields. Well, I'm seeing all of the fields that are available in box 2. But the way I do this is I usually start at the top and work my way down. So up here, you'll see, I'm just kind of scrolling up and down here. Right here, you'll see quick actions in the Salesforce Classic Publisher. Anytime you see this, they're talking about Classic chatter. Are we using Classic?
No.
So I'm going to pull all of these actions from the layout. Like I said, the best practice is to keep everything as restricted as possible and as simple as possible. So since we're not using it, I'm just going to go ahead and pull those. If we're ever going to use the Classic Publisher, I'll come back in and fix it. The next grouping of things here that you can see are the Salesforce mobile and Lightning experience actions. So this is the point in the class where I say, I always have mobile open. So when I develop in tandem or in parallel. I'm developing mobile and Classic at the same time. Does anybody know
Mobile
why?
and Classic or Mobile and Lightning?
Well, Lightning is a third layer. The record page is a Lightning only functionality, right? So I start out with currently, I've got my objects up, right? My standard objects, I put them in schema. I've got an idea of what we're going to use, yes?
Yes.
So the next thing I'm going to do usually, I mean, and I don't do everything in the same order, but one of the things I want to do is I want to clean up all of my page layouts to where they're the most restrictive. So what I'll do is I'm going to pull, these are the mobile and Lightning experience actions are the actions that show up in the top right-hand corner in Lightning. They're the buttons that show up at the bottom of mobile. What I would recommend that you do in our break is upload the mobile application from the App Exchange and log in as Joe on your mobile device. So that when you're developing in Lightning or Classic, you know, you're kind of doing both right now with the page layout, but I'm also looking at mobile and checking it to see if it looks good. That way, when I get done, I don't have to go back and do it again. So I'm just pulling everything here that I don't think I'm going to need. I don't like to create records from actions, especially early on, unless they're activities. So I'm pulling all this crud that people don't need. We're not using approvals, toss it. Edit, what's the one thing I want users to do? What is the user's job, right? It's like enter the data. This thing drives me nuts sometimes. Hang on. It's a little glitchy in Lightning. It's okay though. Sometimes it gets like everything highlighted in blue and I can't turn it off, so I got to kind of refresh, go back in, make changes. But those Lightning experience actions are just hugely important because if you have too many, the user gets lost in the dropdown like as if it was a pick list with too many values. So I'm just grabbing the stuff that I know, and I'm going to grab that edit. I'm going to put it in the far left because that's going to be the first thing they see on the bottom in mobile. It's going to be the first action that they have available in Lightning in the top right-hand corner. Delete, I'll leave. How am I going to control delete?
Through permissions?
Yeah, object permissions, right? So I'll just leave that there. You know, looking at that, that's not too bad. I can create a task, I can log a call, I can edit the record, create a calendar event, send them an email, change ownership, delete, or change the record type, which we'll use later. So that's what I've done. If you want to look up here in box 2, or in box 1, excuse me, there are some other things that you could add if you wanted. But I'm going to wait for the plunge to see if they need any of this functionality. I'm not just going to immediately give them everything right out of the box. This is the difference between a good, clean application that's usable, that users like to use, and one that's just trash. I'm going to do the same thing with buttons here. These buttons are actually for Classic. But I'll pull the ones that I don't think they would need if they are allowed to go to Classic. Okay, so I've just tightened this thing way down here. Then I'm going to come down and I'm going to pull all the stuff I don't need here. There's way too many fields. You got to think mobile these days. Your users are going to be on their phone. Do they really care about a fax? Now, some industries, they might. I hate the rating field. Ticker symbol, who cares? You know, all these KPIs may or may not be important. I'm going to say they're not until they tell me that they are. And I'm going to pull everything that I can pull initially. I might leave, and I like to do it in stacked columns like this. That was that county field I created. And then there's a bunch of stuff here they may or may not need. I'm going to pull it, and they're going to tell me what they need. I'm not just going to leave this crap in here. I want them to tell me. I don't care who created it. I don't care who last modified it at this point. I want them to use it. I'm just moving these fields around. Then, all right, let's see. Description, I'd probably put that here. And then I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to remove all these sections I no longer need by hitting this little button here. Okay. Related lists. Well, we're not using cases yet. Related lists are located here, by the way, in box 1. So we have contacts that I'll need, ops that I'll need. There's our activities and activity history for our tasks. I'm going to remove notes and attachments, partners, and let's say account. Maybe we're not using accounting. I want it to be as simple as possible. At that point, I can go ahead and save this thing. Generally speaking, what I would do next is go to my mobile, and I'm going to do this in an old version of mobile. There's a new, better version of mobile, but this will give you the general idea. They have this simulator they no longer support. It's the old way of seeing Salesforce 1, but it gives you a general understanding. But the better way of doing this is uploading the actual app to your telephone. I'm going to go in here. Do I really care what the admin sees? Who do I want to see this as?
User.
As my user, right? Who cares what I see? So I'm going to get my username for Joe, and I'm going to log in as Joe. Just go to users here. And I want to grab his username, which is this long deal here. And I'll put that in here. And then my password, hopefully I get it right. There we go.
And it already knows what org to connect to?
Well, it's his username and password. What is the key points of the username? It's unique, right? Across the entire ecosystem. So if all you need is an internet connection, a username, and a password, and that gets you into your org in the multi-tenant infrastructure. What is controlling what objects I see here, do you think? Who am I logged in as?
Joe.
Joe. What objects can Joe see?
The sales app.
Standard ones.
Well, the ones that we gave him the permission to see on
Yeah.
The
Okay, you
profile?
can see what
hey,
you
look,
can.
security. Right? Isn't it? So then if I go to an account, notice that this is basically Facebook as far as the interface. I got rid of a lot of stuff, but sometimes see how the actions down here? See how there's not a million of them? They can easily, I might go back in and look at the page layout and make a change depending on what shows up here. Now the new version of mobile uses the record pages and component-based functionality to see more what you would see in Lightning. This is the old version, but you're getting the general idea here. I'm going to set up my page layout to where it looks best in mobile because they built the Lightning platform. The Lightning platform is mobile. That's what they built it from. So this account number I might not need. Save that thing. And then maybe if I come back. Sometimes it takes a while for this thing to change. Yeah, see, it's just being a little glitchy. But I'm constantly looking at mobile. As I develop the page layout. Some other stuff you can find here. Well, where do the related lists go? There they are. The page layout's determining which related lists are showing up here. Or the objects they're allowed to see in the page layout together, essentially. If I come down here and look, there's a little in here. There's a little wrench here. You can change the fields that show up in the related list. I don't see anything too super awesome there. Maybe state province just for fun. That works. And then you can see. So you can get really granular with what shows up in the related list. And this is also going to be important for when you're looking at related lists and record pages in Lightning. So we can change the fields that we want available through these cogs. So we got 5 minutes left here. The next thing I would do when kind of pre-planning my application here is I'm going to go into the object manager, go to schema, and I'm going to look at the contact object. What do you think I'm going to do now?
Clean up the
Same
page
thing.
layout.
I do everything the same regardless of who I'm building it for. I'm going to clean up all of my standard object page layouts. I'm going to get them all on the schema, and I'm just one at a time going to deal with them. How many do I have?
4.
How many do I need?
1.
Okay, you get the idea. So if you look at our project, you don't have the link, I'll shoot it to you here in a moment.
Again, Ryan, regardless of having the 4 here, you're only using 1.
Absolutely. That's why we're going to delete them all. So if I'll put the this thing in chat here.
And so if you wanted to modify the one that you have versus creating a new one, it sounds like.
Yeah, oh, definitely. If I can remove stuff that was not needed, I'm going to do it. There we go. So there's our where'd it go? Too much open. Nope. I have darn thing open. Let's try it again. Here we go. So if you look at our project, I'm just kind of getting everything that's standard that we're using currently. I'm getting it on schema, and then I'm going to go to each of the main standard objects anyway, accounts, contacts, ops, and I'm going to get all of those page layouts cleaned up. So homework before Thursday is that I would like for everybody to get accounts, contacts, and opportunities cleaned up, meaning get rid of any extra ones. So we should only have one for each object, one page layout, and then clean up all those actions and make everything look good in mobile, just the way I showed you on the account object. It's the same thing, just 2 more times. If you have any trouble, we'll talk about it first thing. Questions?
That was for accounts, contacts, and ops, right?
Yep.
Sounds good.
Sound good? So you can kind of see where this is going, right? You look at
Ryan,
this.
did you want to talk about before we close today what you and I talked about over the weekend?
You know, I was thinking about it, and I think you're right. I kind of like this format.
Okay.
If you're talking about the podcast.
Yeah.
I think this is just as good. for now. I don't need another project. So with that, hopefully everybody felt pretty good about today. It was a little bit of an eclectic day, but those are nice sometimes. If you have any real world questions for the beginning of next class, please bring them in. I love working on those with the group. Those are actually better than anything I can, build for you or try to set up for you. But the next step here is we're going to get all of our standard objects in order. Then what do you think we're going to do?
Build a custom object or two.
Yeah, so we're going to build all of the custom objects that we need. But first, in order to do that, what are we going to need before everything else? What do we always need first?
Scotch.
See this?
This is process defined.
Yeah, we
Oh,
got to
business-
define our process, don't we?
Yeah.
You see it over here? So that's where we're working our way through to make this app together. But with that, I will go ahead and leave the floor open for questions. If you don't have any questions, we'll see you Thursday. Thanks again for joining us.
Awesome. Please post this when you can.
Will do.
Thanks, sir.
Yep.
Right.
Bye all.
Take care, everybody.